Following up on the last episode that we did on this, today we're going to double check the square of this chassis and the level. It's been 3 weeks since I've been in the shop. It's been crazy busy. So here we are again, and this is an important follow-up to the last episode on this. So stick around. I'm Mike, and you're watching My Car Shop. Let's face it, in a building this old, with the weather the way it is, stuff moves. So I just want to double check everything before we start moving forward. So let's take a peek. Our level this way is good on this rail. Our level on that rail is good. And our cross level is good. So nothing has moved. Double check our squareness. Make sure that we're copacetic and not so pathetic. But that would mean I'd have to, I have to have a tapeworm. I found one. All right, let's get her done. Oh, let's see. It's been a hot minute. Oh. $102 and probably a red hair. Must be off square, just a Nova. Which way would it need to go? Let's see, we are a little short on this side, so it needs to go that way just a little bit. Now let's make sure that our, well, nothing should have changed, but let's measure here to here, go 30 and 3/8. Huh. I got some cogitating to do. Something's off besides me. No idea where that came from. Fortunately, it didn't get into my foot. Okay, we're right on the money. When I measured this, I grabbed the angle iron inside instead of the edge of the whatchamajiggy. I took a hammer and I gave it one little tink on the back to just, even though it's welded, it moved just a little teeny bit, and we're perfectly square now. So we're good. I'm pleased with that. So in our last episode, I think we were kind of laying out and determining where the torsion bar mounts are going to be, and I was thinking about something else as well I wanted to mention to you if you're considering a build like this. As you know, MKS is all about use what you've got if you've got it, but what if you don't got it? Well, I wanted to mention a couple things. As I was cruising around Marketplace just recently, I found an S10 chassis complete with axles and front suspension. Brakes were all there. Obviously nothing above the frame. It was stripped, no motor or anything like that. $300. So that's a really low cost alternative for something like this. That's the direction we were going, and I would have purchased that. Matter of fact, it's local here. I would have purchased that immediately had I not already been so far down this rabbit hole. I thought about grabbing it anyway, but I don't have the cash to spare. I want to stay focused on the projects that I'm doing, not buying parts and things to just sit. I've already got enough of that crap, which is why we're building this. But the second thing, and I wanted to mention this, some of you had mentioned the potential problems with the lateral torsion bars. Again, I have this, we've got that all worked out. But the thing that occurred to me this morning, and these are really plentiful out there. If you look at the, I believe it's the M body, don't quote me on that, I'm losing touch on some of those newer cars, but basically anything that was a Volare, Aspen, Diplomat, Fifth Avenue from 76, 77 up till they stopped making those in, what was it, 89, I think is when they made the last of those rear wheel drives. Those cars, they have a transverse torsion bar, which means that the torsion bar is built into the K-frame assembly. So it literally is an entire package with 4 bolts that goes into the car with nothing else required to have front suspension other than obviously upper control arms. And I thought, man, you know, if I wasn't already down this rabbit hole and I was still looking to use Mopar front suspension, I'd be looking for one of those, because it literally, I mean, everything. It's all one neat little package. Sway bar, all that stuff is just built right into it. And so that's a really good way to go also, if you don't have the resources. And again, it's about not spending a lot of money. I think you could pick that whole thing up for next to nothing. I think my buddy John got one of those assemblies to put the discs on his 66 Belvedere, which you've seen here on the channel. I've done a bunch of work on that car. He got the whole car for a couple $100. I mean, it was really inexpensive. So and those cars are plentiful. There's a lot of them out there. So anyway, side note, but again, it's about, if you're here about building hot rods, especially if you're into doing stuff with Mopars like I am mostly, then that's a good way to go. So what I'm wanting to do today is determine, when we put the back half of the frame on this, exactly where are the front spring mounts going to be. And there's a reason I want to know that, because I had this steel, right? We could have just bought two 14-foot sticks of quarter wall box tube. I seriously considered doing that, but again, it's about using what I have. So we're going to have to weld on. I have 4 of these 8-foot chunks. We're going to have to weld on 2-foot overlap, which is good, and weld the rest of this back on there. We're planning to put it on the outside. I don't have the drawing out here right now on the board, but I'm curious to know where the front spring eye is going to be. I think I know, but I want to do some cogitating and calculating. So that means I need to determine where my axle center is on the front, and then measure back. I think it's 120 inches, 116 to 120 inches is what the wheelbase is on a short box 39 pickup. There's a couple variances depending on things. So we're going to determine where that is. There's a reason it's important for me to know. Okay, this works for mock-up and layout. So the axle is going to be 36 to 40 inches behind the frame here. That's where the axle center is going to be. So I should have drew a line here, but 40 inches is here, 36 is here. I've got to, I think, I don't know what I think. Let's just go with 116 to start. So that's 36 inches. Okay. And then the spring eye is 20 inches, 20 and a half inches forward of axle center. So we're looking at, let's see, 16 inches. That can't be right. Yeah, it's 20 inches. 20 and a half would be 15 and a half inches behind the frame. Let me get a marker. Oh, yep, let me get a marker. So there's the rear of the frame. Here to here are the potential axle centers. And so this is 36, this is 40. Okay, and then so from here, 20 and a half inches forward, let's just do it this way, 20 and a half inches forward is here. That's our 36 point. And that's our 40 point. Okay. Now the reason I'm doing this is because I'm thinking about stress load. If you remember, we're going to scab the other frame rail on the outside. We're going to have a 2-foot overlap. So the frame is going to be up to about here on the outside. And I'm thinking about the stress point of load. The further the spring eye is to the front rail, the stronger this joint is going to be, right? The further back it is, the more it's putting that stress load the joint, the overlap is going to have more stress. I always over-engineer everything hugely, and I've got an idea on what I'm going to do here. Since our spring is going to be, I was hoping it was going to be in the end, like right up in here, but it's not bad because we only got like 15.5 inches back if it's 36, 19.5 inches if it's 40, and that's undetermined yet. What I may do, and I'm thinking this is what I'm going to do, is weld a piece onto the end of this frame that brings it back into like here. I know I've got another piece of this box tube I was going to make cross members out of, but honestly I can pick up some 1/8 wall to make the cross members. I don't need something that heavy. I've also got a couple pieces of this, which is not quarter wall, but it's not 1/8 wall, and this could work for cross members, so we're going to be fine there. But if I was to scab on my other 8-foot piece with the 2-foot overlap here, and that's going to go back 6 feet, that's the other side I need to make sure. Good point. I got to check the back side of the spring to make sure that we have enough room to the back. Let me do that, because that could be a miscalculation. See, you always got to be thinking. Can't reach it because of where the table's at, so I got to calculate it. 6 feet. Minus 20. Here. This hurts my head. So let's see. If I have a 6-foot frame rail off the back, and then I'm minus 20.5, which is 6 is 72, 20.5. We may have a problem. You got to do some cogitating. Let me do the maths and stuff. I won't embarrass myself by doing it all here, and I'll be back. Okay, so with a 24-inch overlap, the front spring eye being back 15 inches from the end of the frame here, and then 20.5 inches to the axle center ish. That leaves us 36.5, and I measured the spring. I got to go measure it again, but the spring measured from axle center, which is here, to the back was 37 inches. So I have a problem. So I want to bring my spring in, and I can't fit it in here, obviously, because of the length, but I want to bring my spring in and do a little bit more calculating, because I think what I may need to do is take and make this overlap 22 inches and give me 2 inches more back here. I hate cutting it that close, but I did check, and 116-inch was the half-ton truck. So that's a good number. The 120 was a 3/4 ton and the 1 ton. So that one's gone. We're not going to do that. So I'm making the digestion right now. That we're going to go 116-inch wheelbase. So I need to make sure that I want as much overlap up here as I can. Yes, I could buy some longer tubing. I know that. We may end up doing that. We could get a piece that's 9 foot long, for example, 2 pieces. But I've got this. I don't want to spend money if I don't have to. So if I can go with a 20-inch, let's say we take this to 20, okay, which is still a good overlap with what I'm thinking, and that puts me back here at 40.5. That gives me 3 inches behind where the spring eye goes. Sorry, I'm not doing this right. So let's say our rear spring eye would be about right in here then. So front spring eye, remember Mopar springs are offset. I could get a set of GM leafs that are centered. They're not offset like this with the rear end forward on the leaf, and that could also shift the axle, shift the spring further forward, but I've got these. So let's calculate. So 37. Let me get the spring in here and let's get some better measurement to be sure that my numbers are more accurate than my ballparks I was using. Okay, I realized that my philosophizing was completely whacked out in what I was thinking. I want to measure a spring that does this. And I went over to the Forsyth Duster and I measured that. And the dimension from the front spring eye, where it mounts up here, center, to this is 55 inches. We'll get a little more accurate measurement, but for our purposes, that's fine. So I went back and I recalculated everything. So for where the bushing goes through the frame rail in the back, to where the hanger comes down, to the center of where this mount is up here is 55 inches. So I went back to my original numbers, put 24 back here, 15-inch back set, 20 inches to axle center. That puts this 72 inches back, 24 inches forward, which gives me my 96, which is 8 feet. And we can tweak that a little bit once we get into the build, but I think we're going to be okay. Before we weld the rear part of the frame to the front, we will double check all of that. We will have the front suspension much further along than we do right now. We're still dealing with, plus or minus an inch here. So if we had to come back an inch, we could, but everything's laying out, and I even updated my blueprint over here with that number just to be sure. So that's good. Now the other thing that I need to do is determine the width. Okay, I know that the B body rear end is a little bit wider than an A body. I think I got to look at that. 8 3/4 A body is narrower than a 7 1/4. So I do need to look at flange to flange to be sure that it's not going to be too wide, but a B body is pretty narrow. I want to use the B body rear end because I have a 270 gear 8 1/4 rear end, which is a pretty good stout rear end. And I'm going to measure flange to flange on that and compare that to the, I can just look it up with my phone. I'll do that wherever that is. It's over there. I'll look up the flange to flange on a 7 1/4 A body versus a 68 B body flange to flange 8 1/4. I'll be right back. A body 7 1/4, 57 7/8, 58 inches. B body 8 1/4, 68, 60 1/4, a difference of 2 3/8. Now I'm going to go upstairs and double check my housing and make sure that the other thing I need to know is spring perch. Perch to perch center. So that I know where my spring is to compare it to my frame and make sure everything's going to be copacetic. So I'm going to go up in the warehouse, do that dimensioning real quick, and I'll be right back. It's in the south warehouse, so it'll take me a minute to get up there and take those numbers. I'll be right back. Okay, I did my maths and I did my measuring, and I actually measured at 60, so it's a 1/4 inch narrower than what the spec is, but it's fine. That's even better because that brings it in a little bit more. Perch to perch is 44 inches. So if we're going to put this frame on the outside of this one, which we planned, that'd be 2 inches there and 2 inches there, which is 38. So our rail to rail is 38. So that means we have a differential perch to perch, which is center to center of 44. That's 6 inches, so that's 3 inches per side. Not bad. And that's where our rear axle spring is going to be now on a Mopar. The springs are on the outside of the frame. The front mount's not going to be a problem because we can just make the offset out as far as we want. The back normally goes through the frame, but that's not the way it's going to work on this. So we're going to have to make something off of the frame because it's 3 inches beyond. Let's see, is that right? 6 inches? Yes. So if our frame thickness is, it's 2 inches, so 4 inches, and then we're 3 inches beyond that, puts us out at 7. So we're out here somewhere. We're going to have to come up with a rear spring mount of some kind back there. I got to cogitate on that a little while. A couple of ways we could do it. We could tweak the frame rail out if we wanted. We could put a piece scabbed on because it's 3 inches. So let's see, how wide is this? This is the rear. Oh, yes. No, this is easy. This is easy. That's right. I forgot. Because this bolts. What's that bolt to? That bolts to a plate that comes off the frame here. Got to look under the duster and see what that bolts to. I don't remember. Okay, that's perfect. It goes right on the outside, and it actually goes to a piece. Oh, that's going to be perfect. Yes. Now it's got me rethinking what I was planning anyway. I'd forgotten that. Oh, perfect. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I've got to cogitate some more. This is going to be slicker than snot on a doorknob. So what I'll do, pretend this is the back of the frame. Okay, so all the way back where it belongs, it's going to be a little wider. All I got to do is put a piece like this on the back at the appropriate dimension. And then that hanger right there goes right on here. And it's a winner chicken dinner. That's going to be slicker than snot on a doorknob. That solves so many issues. I'd forgotten that they aren't in the frame. I think the Challenger, yeah, that's where my head was because I spent so much time rebuilding the Challenger. Those are in the frame, but this has got its own bracket. So that just bolts right on here. So my 2-inch piece, and then that piece there should fit right on the outside. Let me just cogitate that and make sure that it's right. But we should be good. So what we can do is put this up here in the land of let's pretend, and we'll lay that out to be sure it's right. So let me get that done. Okay, lots of cogitating, but I got it. So here to here is where the other box tube is going to be, right? So this will be mounted, welded to the end of that frame. And then axle center, I figured I need a 4-inch clearance to get this to clear the frame in here. But I measured it, 44 inches, perch to perch. It actually gives me something more than that. It gives me 3 inches, basically 2 7/8 out from the frame. So that gives me plenty of clearance for my shackle to be in here. So this will be up on the frame like this, mounted on the end, obviously. Boom, hopefully. And then the other frame will be here and here, welded 24 inches up here. And then our center on our springs is right here and right here. So lots of clearance. That's going to work. So my goal, my plan now is to continue on. What I'm going to do is let this flex, okay? So now that I know this back plate is where that spring is going to be, and I plan to weld this to the end of the frame, when I build the rear half of the frame, we'll have this off the table. We'll build the back half of the frame, and then this will be the back point. This will be the mount. The front mount will fall where it falls, 55 inches up. It'll be perfect. And we'll build the ears off of the frame up there for this to be on as well. And yeah, it should be a winner chicken dinner. I don't see a problem with it at all. So we'll get the back half of the frame done. The front half of the frame will be done at that point. And then the two shall become one flesh. And we'll marry them forever. Hold their peace. So cool. Yeah, it's all coming together. So let me give you some final thoughts here. Don't go away. I had 30,000 foot viewed this whole project before we started going this direction. But I hadn't worked out some of the details because I knew they would be work-outable. The biggest thing was the front K-frame and all that. We worked all that out a while ago. In fact, the episode that's airing today, this is just a couple days before Christmas. That episode is the one where I'm putting the plates on the chassis table and getting the frame rails up in place with it upside down to preliminarily lay out the K-frame. So the next few episodes that you've seen were from that point. Obviously, I still haven't welded this down to the table yet. That's coming soon. But I want to look at all of the, I don't want to say insurmountables, but things that need to be looked at and addressed in order to make this all work. And I start going from 30,000 foot view to ground floor view, basically. The only other thing that I've got to work out, and it's not that big a deal, but I've got to do some dimensioning off of a good car again, is the upper control arm, how they're going to mount. Again, that's not insurmountable. I'm probably going to steal a couple ideas that my buddy Squirrel over there at Squirrel's Workshop had. If you haven't seen his channel, go check him out. I know he watches this, so shout out to Squirrel's Workshop. Great channel. I love the Mustang project he's doing, but just, it's a lot like what I do. He shares not just the project, but he also shares stuff he's doing around the shop. It's really, really good content and encouraging content, so check him out. Anyway, so I got some ideas from stuff he's done on his Mustang that I'm probably going to incorporate into the upper control arms on this as well, just to give a little more strength. But it's a challenge for me, especially I've got an episode probably coming right after this one where I'm going to discuss the viral video that I just had here a few weeks ago. I lost momentum, believe it or not. Partly because of that. I spent the entire weekend responding to almost 1,000 comments. It was nuts. I didn't get out in the shop at all that weekend. I had intended to get a lot done. I haven't been out here for 3 weeks. It's just a couple days before Christmas right now. We were out down in Missouri over Thanksgiving. It's just been crazy. There's some member content here where I talk a little more about that. So I'm normally 4, 6, 8 weeks out on my releases. I'm like 2 weeks, and I don't like that at all. So I'm going to be hammering out here over the Christmas holiday to get stuff done. But I wanted to share today my thinking and share some of the details of when you're doing a tube chassis build like this, the stuff you have to work through, the stuff you have to figure out. It's all figure outable, but it's important to figure it out. You know, I've been a little bit concerned about the strength of this overlap here. I've got that resolved. I am going to drill a couple of holes through the frame and bolt things together for safety. That way, if any of my welds break, it's going to be bolted together as well as just a safety measure. Am I worried about my welds breaking? Not really. I've never had that happen. I've built tons of cars, but I'm not the one who's going to be driving this. This is for my wife, so I'm extremely extra paranoid about that. But I've got most of that worked out. We'll put some grade 100 bolts in there or something. I'm going to be tapering the back of this here and also up here so that I can get super good penetration on those welds because this is quarter wall. My MIG welder won't do it. My TIG welder will. Chris is getting a stronger MIG, so we may have him bring that up. What we may do is MIG weld the crap out of it with a really super strong MIG and then just do a TIG pass over it. My TIG welder also can do stick welding. I have no concerns about my ability to stick weld at all, so we could stick weld this together really good. So I've been welding since I was 16 years old. My welds may not always be pretty, but they are strong. So I think what's coming next, we may start working on figuring out those upper control arms. I'm really comfortable with this back. In fact, This piece right here may be the piece that I end up using for the back. It may not. I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's just, this was for concept more than anything. So anyway, to say that some of the reason I struggled, I'm all over the place like horse crap on a wagon wheel. Sorry about that. Some of the reason I struggle getting back out here is after you have a viral video, you look at your content differently, and it's tempting to just like all of a sudden start chasing after that. And I'm realizing that as I've worked through that, I need to be true to who I am, and hopefully this content is something that's in the big picture going to be valuable to people. It's not about what I'm doing. It's really not. Rather, I want what I do to inspire you to do for yourself. Even if it's, I wouldn't do it that way, I would do it this way. That's a winner as far as I'm concerned. I'm sharing with you what I do. You do you, okay? It's been an interesting journey up to this point for sure. We're in season 6 right now. This is, I think, second week in January, maybe, yeah, something like that when this is airing. So anyway, all right, I'm going to shut up. I'm just blathering on here. So that'll do it for this one. We will catch you on the next one. Channel memberships are as little as $5 a month. And don't forget, because it is really important here at MKS.